Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
Despite the noise in the marketplace, the Head Nose Foundation said they are moving full steam ahead.
A Bahamian serving in the U.S. military comes home to help the hurricane relief efforts.
The Minister of Environmental Health discusses plans to clean up those storm-ravaged islands.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joachim. Topping news tonight, the bodies of some people who died when Hurricane Dorian ravaged Evacuee and Grand Bahama may never be recovered, according to Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands. 1,300 people are still registered as missing. Meanwhile, 25 of the 51 bodies recovered thus far have undergone autopsies. Sands says he realizes this grim news may be a tough pill to swallow for those families desperately seeking closure.
What we hope to do is to refine the missing persons list, compare it to the deceased confirmed dead, and get that list as close to accurate as possible. Some of those bodies will probably never be found, just because of the nature of this storm. And that is, for many families, a horrible reality, because then it's difficult to get closure.
Sands says the bodies that are positively identified will be placed in a morgue. An autopsy will be carried out and the remains will be turned over to families. If remains cannot be identified, he says the government will decide what to do.
If those remains are not able to be identified, then certainly they would have to be retained for a certain period of time as we complete the process of going through the missing persons list, having persons try to identify their loved ones. Samples for DNA have been taken from those autopsies already completed, and I'm advised that we've done at least 25 autopsies in Evacuee already. At some point in time, a determination would be made as to whether or not bodies would be removed from cold storage and probably buried.
Well, a man and a woman were murdered along Gladstone Road this morning, pushing the murder count for the year to 74. The double homicide comes just hours after a man was gunned down in Fox Hill. Two hearses carrying the bodies of the country's latest murder victims pull out of this yard at the break of dawn. It ended a busy few hours for police officers as 4 people were shot and 3 left dead. In this morning's incident, police were called to this Gladstone Road apartment complex after neighbors reported hearing screams.
Once the police officers arrived on the scene, they went into one of the units where they discovered the lifeless body of 2 individuals, one adult female and one adult male. We can only say that from our preliminary investigation that both victims appeared to have had some type of blunt force trauma to their bodies.
EMS personnel pronounced both victims dead on scene. Chief Superintendent Solomon Cash could not give a motive at this time.
It's uncertain how the perpetrator enters the building. As you can see, I have my scenes of crime officers still currently on scene, probing all those avenues.
Their tragic deaths came less than 9 hours after 2 men were shot, one fatally in Fox Hill. The incident occurred through a busy Ambrister Street.
The only information we're working with is that shortly before that time, there were a group of individuals, male, who were hanging along the side of the street here in this open yard. When a Japanese type vehicle pulled up, 2 persons emerged from that vehicle, both opened fire on all of the victims who were seated here. 1 were fatally shot. Second was transported to accident emergency where he's undergoing medical attention.
On scene, police could be seen pulling the victim's body from underneath a truck. He reportedly tried to run for cover after multiple shots were fired. But there is a nexus with this incident and another murder that occurred Monday morning. Police believe the same small Japanese vehicle was used.
We have not made any progress as it relates to locating that vehicle, but I can tell you the significant leads we're following. I'm strongly of the view that we should soon be taking some persons into custody relative to those incidents.
And those aren't the only murders currently under investigation. Police say a man who was shot outside a home on Eden Street on Saturday died Monday in hospital, adding to the murder count, which, according to Our News records, now stands at 74. And with this recent spree of murders, the CDU chief was asked whether there is a gang war ongoing.
That information has not been brought to the police attention, but again, we respect all information that comes to us, and given what you asked just now, we would probe that to see if we could unravel whether or not there's some remnants of gang activities.
Amid growing speculation, co-founder of the Head Knowles Foundation, Gina Knowles, is setting the record straight on her separation from co-founder Leah Head. The group has been instrumental in Hurricane Dorian relief efforts, but faced a few setbacks in recent days. Jillian Gray reports.
The recent split between Head Knowles Foundation management is not deterring them from their hurricane efforts. In fact, founder of the Head Knowles Foundation, Gina Knowles, said they're moving full steam ahead.
Nothing will stop me. Listen, I could be doing this by myself. I mean, I know the team I have behind me, but I know what I always say. I feel like Noah. You know, I feel like God is telling me to build his ark.
Last night, co-founder Leah Head Rigby posted a statement on social media sites and said she has been disheartened by the measures to defame her name and reputation. Head Rigby furthered that all accounting information that was required of her was submitted and the page was shut down as requested. However, when Our News visited that site today, it was still active. Co-founder of Head Knowles, Gina Knowles, said the split only made sense.
It's unfortunate. But remember, you know, what people don't realize is Leah doesn't live here. She lives in Orlando. So it only makes sense with her saying, okay, Gina, handle it, because of the fact that we're here. And the two teams, it's very difficult because you can't have too much cooks in the kitchen type of thing. So we told her, we got this. And she decided that she said she'll take her charitable expertise elsewhere, and we said, okay.
Though Head has stepped away from the foundation, Knowles said their work continues, and the foundation has a team of accountants who currently handle financial matters. She insisted that every transaction is transparent and donors have nothing to worry about.
For everybody who does have, starts questioning, listen, you don't even have to give the money directly to me. You could say, I want this to go to fuel, and I will say, this is our fuel company. Please donate the money straight to them. We have done that for the planes. We've done that for the shipping.
The group has not received over $1 million in donations from GoFundMe as yet and said all local donations are still in the bank. Knowles said they have big goals to help in the rebuilding process, but are currently focused on meeting the immediate needs of feeding and housing evacuees. The foundation is also moving to a new location to accommodate donations.
We had looked at about 15 buildings. And the one that we found on Gladstone Road, we really like. We're hoping that they give us occupancy as soon as possible. We're trying to follow all the guidelines according to all the officials and we're just moving fast because we need to get in. So as soon as they give us permission to open, we're gone. We're ready to load up and start all over again.
Knowles says the new location should be up and running in a matter of days. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
2 weeks after Hurricane Dorian slammed into Abaco, some evacuees staying at the Bahamas Academy Gymnasium shelter say conditions aren't comfortable and they are ready to head back to that devastated island. Jared Hicks has their story.
Now inside the shelter at the old Bahamas Academy Gymnasium, hundreds of cots line the floor. Many people, including children, inside playing. It's not exactly an ideal situation, and that's where we met one man, 50-year-old Devin Roll. He's a former engineer who lived in Marsh Harbor, Abaco. He said he never expected to be here.
No way. I couldn't conceive that at all.
We caught up with Roll, who lived in Abaco since the age of 12, lounging in the yard of the old BA shelter. Retiring from BEC after 21 years at the age of 41, Roll says he spent the last 9 years in Marsh Harbor fixing yacht engines, alternators and starters. Sprinkle in a bit of gardening, and the father of 5 was living his best retirement life.
It's not the modern comforts of home. That sum it up as, as that. It's not the modern comfort, especially as a Bahamian. It's not what we're used to.
For one, there is no air-conditioned unit, and it is admittedly the gymnasium of a school that moved elsewhere years ago. With dozens of kids and adults living in a relatively small space, it is difficult to imagine a peaceful night's sleep.
For me, I can I can sleep in a lot of different conditions, you know.
Roll, a Bahamian national, reluctantly points out that the shelter is mostly occupied by Haitian nationals. Off camera, he tells Our News the shelter's occupants are nice enough, but he says he believes they have a preference for people of their own nationality. Add in the language barrier, and he says at times he feels left out.
It's just a devastating thing.
Haitian-born 31-year-old Peter Efren agreed that the shelter is occupied by mostly Haitians.
Yeah, we could say 90% of people inside is Haitians.
He says their main concern is looking out for their children.
Plenty kids in there without no parents, like both parents dead, and I don't know what social service will do for them because a lot of kids inside there don't even register for school yet.
When asked if he was excited about a planned tent city in Abaco, Roll says he would jump at the chance.
I'd love that because I'd be home, you know. And we was just talking earlier about how we was used to the sea life and, you know, going out fishing, catching what we want. But at least we would eat what we want and what we were used to.
There are approximately 2,000 displaced storm victims living in shelters throughout New Providence. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
A region devastated by war. That's how a Bahamian serving in the U.S. Air Force has described the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian. Sergeant Omar Butler has been on the ground and helping with recovery efforts after being granted leave from his post in Germany. Jasmine Brown reports.
Sergeant Butler has likened what he has seen to the aftermath of a war. However, he says he's confident the Bahamas will rebuild. Butler, who has been a member of the U.S. Air Force for more than 15 years, says what he has seen in Abaco and Grand Bahama over the last few days has been indescribable. He recalled the horror of flying over Abaco, seeing the total devastation and the scent of death reaching hundreds of feet in the air and permeating their aircraft.
If you didn't know, if you'd just seen both places, whether it's a war zone or whether it's a hurricane zone, you would think the same thing happened. I mean, the destruction is incredibly familiar. I was able to do a flyover over the hurricane zone, essentially, and the devastation just broke my heart. I mean, it's going to take a long time to rebuild.
Sergeant Butler says what's even worse is the storm's psychological toll on survivors.
And I remember I spoke to a lady a few days ago. She had came in from Abaco with her kids. She had survived, and she said her daughter basically right now gets traumatized when she hears the rain.
Now Butler, who is currently stationed in Germany, is in the country under much different circumstances after being granted leave to return home.
I was in Germany following and monitoring the path, and once the path was determined that it was definitely going to hit the Bahamas, I sat and watched, in agony.
And he did not come home empty-handed. Butler returned with donated goods to hand out to those in need. He has also been on the ground and helping to ensure those supplies are shipped out.
The folks that I work with in Europe, we put together a quick donation drive, and I brought all the supplies with me, and essentially once I got here on the ground, I've just been teaming with various agencies.
Butler says while he is only one man, he believes in making a difference. He encouraged others to do the same. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
All right, thanks, Jasmine. Still to come, government to remove 1.5 billion pounds of debris. Plus, the finance minister projects a $200 million revenue shortfall. The details after this break.